All right, here we go.
Yeah. You feel rusty?
No, I feel okay. Here we go.
It's been a minute.
It's been a while. Okay. Welcome to Drift Guitars. My name is Chris.
And I'm Matt.
And we are in what used to be the recording studio here at my house.
Well, it's a spare bedroom.
It's a spare bedroom.
Yeah.
And I don't.
You can't see what's behind the camera, so it sounds way more illustrious than it is.
Right.
It's a modest spare bedroom.
That's right. But we've converted it from my recording studio to an actual office, and we are still got more work to do. But we're going to be doing more sit-down talks in here.
Yeah.
I know that folks at home have been wanting some more meat and potatoes sawdust videos. We have been full production lately on getting title casters going. We're doing like up to 35 of them right now. So the shop is noisy and loud. So that's why we have been doing a little bit more talking head videos lately. Matt just got back from vacation. So we're back.
Yep. I don't know if I look any tanner, but
right.
I had a nice time. Yeah, glad to be back in the shop.
And today our video is going to be answering 5 questions from the Acoustic Guitar Forum. And I'm going to hopefully maybe shed some light on them. What they say about opinions, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what they do.
Before we get into those, I do want to tell everybody at home who are budding guitar builders or full-time guitar builders that we are running a sale on our website, driftwoodguitars.com/tonewood, where everything except for like 1 or 2 items is anywhere between 15 and 25% off, including the Brazilian rosewood that we got from the bedroom set, some of the zircoti, we've got some maples, we've got some really good
little springtime sale.
Yeah, so go check that out. We have a link below, and buy often.
Hooray capitalism.
That's right. With that, we've had Matt kind of find some questions, and we're just gonna answer them. Well, I'm gonna try to.
Yeah, opinionated, whatever. Yeah. So this is from user Freegley, I believe. Freegley was wondering, do denser, heavier tone woods allow lighter bridges? And the question being, I wonder if back and sides of rosewood types or heavier, with the attendant depth and bass they come with, allow for a lighter bridge weight than down the continuum of mahogany, etc. I'm reading this verbatim, so
okay.
Yeah, but in other words, bass and sustain and bigness and sound is already there, so you can match with the lighter mass in the bridge for a quick. I just started drawing on that for some reason. For a quick response and perhaps other advantages, whereas with black limba or something, a weightier bridge might be more advisable. So basically, is a lighter bridge better whenever you have a bassier sounding tone wood, I think is the question.
Yeah. So obviously Matt primed me with some of these questions before we got on camera, and I was like, well, I don't really understand the question, but yes, what this person is asking, is that if I'm using a denser tone wood on the back and sides, does that allow me to use an even lighter bridge?
Yes, or no, a heavier bridge.
A heavier bridge.
Yeah. Or vice versa. Like, can you incorporate a heavier bridge, I think, into the selection of tone wood to either adjust for the tone or vice versa.
And I like where his head's at with this because, like, bridge weight matters. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people don't think about that. I see conversations about, like, when we cut up the Cocobolo, a lot of people, save that for bridges. Well, no, like I would never want to use those for bridges because Cocobolo is incredibly heavy. The answer for bridge weights is always lighter is better, in my opinion. Okay. And that's my opinion. I want, I've talked.
Fight us in the comments.
Exactly. I've talked about this before. The back and sides and the bridge weight, they don't have anything to do with one another. Right. The lighter the bridge in all circumstances, in my opinion, is always going to be better because think about you've got the string going across the nut, coming down the neck. It goes across the saddle and down into the guitar top. So the one spot that's translating all of that energy into the guitar itself is the bridge for the most part. And the heavier the bridge is, the more energy it's going to take to vibrate it and wake it up and turn it into sound. So it'd be like Matt the Sailor having really heavy, inefficient canvas for your sails. Water-soaked sails versus having incredibly lightweight sails.
Yeah.
It's going to affect not necessarily the top speed of the boat, probably, but it is going to affect its responsiveness to the wind. Am I wrong?
Well,
there?
And could you maybe make the argument that there are other more energy efficient ways to achieve that tone than with the bridge, right?
Yeah.
You'd be better off like shaving some bracing somewhere else. Like if you're trying to use the bridge to compensate for tone.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of other ways to shape the tone of your instrument. Whether it's, I want more projection or mids or highs or bass, like there's better ways to go about that than the bridge. I write down the bridge weight on all of my guitars. There's a reason why every driftwood acoustic guitar that's come off the workbench in the last, God, probably 8 years is Brazilian Rosewood Bridge. I used to offer that as an option. I think it's still listed as an option on my website. But it's with people who wouldn't buy it as an option, I would still put it on their guitar because it's just, that wood is so, A, musical, but B, really, really light. And it's the perfect combination of wood to me for a bridge. It's going to be, it's going to transfer energy really well, and it's going to be as light as possible. I want to say, I'm pulling this out of my rear here, but I want to say my bridges average like 25 grams. I can't remember. All I know is that when I was, the difference between an Indian rosewood bridge and a Brazilian rosewood bridge that's my shape, I was getting like a 30% weight reduction by going from the Indian rosewood to the Brazilian. And I used to make some of my bridges out of African blackwood, which is incredibly dense.
Right.
And those guitars sounded good. But if I were to switch it out to Brazilian, I bet that guitar would sound a lot better. And it's better subjective, right? But it would have kind of better everything.
Yeah.
But the one thing I noticed about switching out or trying to get my bridges as light as possible was the responsiveness. It's just like the moment you hit the string, boom, that note blossoms and comes out.
The
and
analogy here, maybe because he's super into racing and cars, and he's indoctrinating me. I'm slowly becoming steeped in it. But I also, in engineering school, anytime that you like a weight reduction of 30% on anything that is, having to do with like energy, that's a no-brainer. Like, of course you would want.
You know, I mean, you speak of the cars, but you look at
any Formula One race team out there, if there's like, well, we can make a steering wheel 30% lighter, they'd be like, do it.
Yeah, well, like you look at Lotus. And I know that we're kind of in the weeds on that, but like Lotus, their whole model there is they take like, it was a friggin', this common 4-cylinder engine, but they want to make the car as light as possible because that reduces the braking distance and the acceleration, all the things. That same principle of engineering applies to guitars, in the bridge specifically. On a bridge, you want as good string to soundboard contact as humanly possible, and all of it to be as lightweight as possible. You'll be amazed if you're a guitar builder, if you just really focus on those things, how much of a difference it'll make. Cool. So that's the long answer to that question, but in my opinion.
Yeah, sure. All right. Next question is from user Splinters. The subject line: how long? No further context. You can see why I was like.
That's why we clicked.
Yeah. When a guitar has just been built and it is strung up for the first time, how long does it take to settle in? In other words, I would expect the neck to bow slightly and the belly of it to rise or rotate a little. What is a reasonable amount of time to allow for this?
Which is a great question. And the answer is it depends. But so like, for example, when I build a guitar for the first time, and I think this question really applies to guitar builders more than like if you bought a guitar. I think this question is a little bit different than the how long does it take for my guitar to open up?
Right.
Because that's a conversation everybody's had.
Yeah.
But when I string up a guitar for the first time, I do a quick little setup on it, but I really don't do much other than put strings on it and get it to the point where it's playable, but I know that the action is still high. I don't really get the nut where I want it. I don't get the truss rod where I want it, and I let it sit on the wall for at least 24 hours. Okay. At least 24 hours. I'd prefer to let it sit for a couple of days, and then I do a setup on it. Then usually the customer takes delivery of it. If it's a local customer, I'll usually tell them about 6 weeks from then to bring me the guitar back again to do a final setup.
Right.
Because it takes a while. But so like there's certain woods like like Adirondack spruce is a very stiff wood, and it doesn't quite flex as quickly as like a cedar does. So when you string up a cedar guitar, the top's gonna flex a lot more, and there's more compensation you need to do. Well, the Adirondack spruce is probably going to flex as far as the cedar did, but it's just going to take longer to do it.
Cool. Okay.
You have to remember that like you've taken a tree that was alive. It's either died or it's been cut down, so it was killed, and you've turned it into lumber. So it has to learn how to be a piece of lumber, and it learns how to be a piece of wood depending on how it was dried, whether it was air dried, whether it was kiln dried, where in the world was it stored, was it humid, was it dry, and then after all of that, when it's finally like, okay, this is the shape I'm in because I'm a piece of wood now,
right.
You turn it into a guitar, and depending on what part of the guitar it is, you've added another level of stress to it, like the
Right.
sides. You've bent up the sides, and now they're like trying to fight the shape of being the sides.
Right.
And then after all of that, you put strings on it. Now you've put
It's under tension.
You put 125 pounds of tension on it.
Yeah.
And so it has to learn how to relax and finally become a guitar. And that's my general theory on why guitars tend to like open up. The reality of it is, it's just all of those little micro stresses that are inside the wood. Eventually, it just gives into it, and it starts to just, okay, this is where I'm at now. This is the shape I'm in. And to that end, if you're building guitars, acoustic guitars specifically, don't do your final setup and intonation check and everything right out of the gate. Put the strings on it and set it aside for a little while. I even use those the little
tone rights.
The tone rights, yeah. And I like to let them hang and just chill for a little while, at least a day or two before I do my preliminary setup on the guitar. And so, yeah, as far as the opening up and all of that stuff, it really depends on the species of the wood. But yeah, let it chill, let it hang out for a little while, because no matter how, if you really dial in everything right out of the gate, like day one, like the first time it's got strings on it, you're kind of wasting your time, because it's going to need more work.
It's going to change anyways.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next question is from Creso77, and the subject line is, how significant is this bridge lift?
Okay.
I think there are going to be some pictures that we'll put up in here, but so I just received a 2007 Layer V LV-03 that I purchased on Reverb. Already off to a good start.
Yeah, exactly.
If you know, you know.
The Reverb guitars.
Yeah. Cosmetically, it's in great shape, but I think it has suffered from some long-term dehydration. I noticed after changing the strings that the bridge is lifting. You can see in the photos, I slipped a piece of paper under it to show how far the separation goes. I've been in communication with the seller and I'm planning on taking it to my luthier later in the week, but I wanted to get some opinions on how significant this looks. I'm hoping for a simple clamp and glue as opposed to needling to take the bridge off. Excuse me.
Yeah.
In the meantime, it's getting well hydrated here, and then here's like pictures.
Yeah.
So you can see
the old paper trick. Yeah, especially there, you can really see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so bridge lift happens, but a lot of times you don't even notice that it's happening, right? Like, if the bridge is lifting, then almost always it requires to be pulled off and glued back on. For those of you that don't do repair work or have never done it before, do not try it yourself, because you'll screw up your guitar. If it's a piece of crap guitar and you want to learn, yeah, do that. But yeah, even just that little bit of lift that they had on there matters. I will say that it really matters because of where it's lifting. It's lifting in the main center section, not on the extension pieces, but like directly behind where the strings go into the bridge.
right.
I literally just had a buddy of mine come by this afternoon with a guitar that I built for him a couple years ago, and it's super overhydrated right now, this guitar, because it's super humid in Florida, and we just happened to notice at the very corner of the bridge is lifting, and he hadn't even noticed, and I hadn't noticed, but my answer to that one was like, oh, it's no big deal because of where it was lifting.
Right.
Like, I would prefer no lifting, obviously.
Yeah.
But if it's just lifting on the very corners, you're fine. Maybe wait until you get it done. But yeah, any sort of lift like that, it really does need to be changed, because it goes back to my conversation that we just had about bridge weight. Though you may not notice it, that's making a sonic difference in the guitar. Not only is it structurally compromised, obviously, but it's making a sonic difference because you've now reduced that contact patch.
Right. It's not as efficient of a possible transfer of energy from the strings to the top.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And sometimes in really bad situations, you'll find literally the only thing holding the bridge on sometimes is pretty much the bridge pins. So you're like, that whole system's like kind of like pinched, and like it's plastic bridge pins and everything just kind of torqued in there, and it turns into a really hot mess. So the answer to bridge lifting always is you don't want any of it, but especially if it's directly behind where the ball ends are, you want to get that replaced pretty much immediately. My recommendation to something like that would be to slacken the strings and take it to a luthier.
Absolutely.
It's not going to destroy the guitar if you play it for a little while with a little bit of a lifting, but get it addressed sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Worth looking at.
Which hopefully that's what the answer on the forum was.
Yeah. So this is from user L Hawes, and the subject line was neck angle check without frets? ? Seems like I used to know all this stuff and just Googled trying to find the info, but does anyone know what sort of clearance one should shoot for at the bridge location when the neck with fingerboard is measured with a straight edge with no frets yet? And no bridge yet, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I actually picked this one to be one of the questions because this is one of those questions, like I mentioned in my recent video where we talked about 5 websites for luthiers. We'll put a little thing up here for that. And because this is like, if you have a question like this, it's a guitar building question, not a guitar question. Like, this question should be posed on the Luthier's forum, in my opinion. Because, so what he's asking for is when you're putting a neck on a guitar and you put a straight edge on the fretboard, how high up should that straight edge be from the soundboard with no frets on it yet?
Right.
Which means there's no bridge glued on yet and there's no frets on it.
Right.
Like, where should that be? And I remember that being one of the hardest things for me to find. So I'll give you what my numbers are. And I know that we're not in front of a guitar right now to be able to show you. And I use metric in this particular case. But when I am getting my neck angle correct, when I'm building the guitar from zero, I've got my neck. I don't even have a fretboard on it yet. What I want is when I put a straight edge on that fretboard, I want to have a 2 millimeter gap where the saddle location is going to be from where the bottom of that straight edge is. I then make my fretboards, they are 6 millimeters thick.
Okay.
No, they're 1/4 inch thick, whatever the hell that is. See, look.
Someone will tell you,
So basically it's 1/4 inch plus 2 millimeters. So I love that. Why am I switching between the two? I don't know why. But that's the gap.
Cries an imperial.
Yeah. So it's like 3/8 of an inch or so. In there, because then basically what I want is when I put the frets on top, because it also depends on what frets you plan on using. Right. When I put frets on the guitar neck, I want that straight edge. I want there to be a 10 millimeter gap.
Okay.
That's what I want, and the reason why is because I use a 10 millimeter thick bridge. Because you want your straight edge to I was just showing Matt this yesterday. Yeah. You want your straight edge to just touch the top of the bridge, so that you have room for the protrusion of the saddle to stick out. So questions like that can be very difficult to find answers to, because most of the time what you have is you're dealing with people on the acoustic guitar forum who either aren't guitar builders or they're just guitar techs. Right. Or just, repair guys, which those are luthiers, but it's different than building it from zero. Yeah. Especially without having a bridge on it whatsoever. Yeah. So, I'm trying to do math here. Yeah, so 6 millimeters. So it'd be about I want about an 8 millimeter gap. Right there at that location with no frets on, and then by the time I add my frets, it's at 10, and bada bang. And what I do want to tell you guys is, if this is one of those things that you need to figure out what works for you and your guitars. Once you find those numbers, write that stuff down and just hit those numbers every single time, and that's when you're going to start to get guitars that when you put strings on them for the first time, everything goes and it goes right where you want it to, and you don't need much of a setup on the guitar. Yeah. It's when you're kind of just shooting in the dark and you're kind of, everything's different every single time. You'll never learn anything. So even if it's your first guitar, write everything down and you're going to be making much better guitars.
Consistency.
I hope that answered the question. I feel like that was...
Let's see here. Oh no, you're good, I think. Next one is from user Mr. Jelly. Please, Mr. Jelly is my father. Call me Eric.
Call me Eric.
Mr. Jelly. The subject line is enlarging the sound hole. So there are some guitars built with larger sound holes, like a Clarence White or a Norman Blake SCD-12, and we were literally just talking about the Tony Rice.
Tony Rice one.
I grew up playing bluegrass, so and that's iconic, like the fingerboard protruding out. I've seen where a luthier enlarged the sound hole for a customer. What are your thoughts and experiences with how it changes a guitar's sound?
I honestly don't have a whole lot of experience with enlarging sound holes. I have experience with experimenting with different size sound holes on my guitar. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I will say about it is it seems like it's a fad right now. I really honestly haven't spent much time on acoustic guitar forum and Luthier's forum. As you get busier doing this professionally, you spend less time on it and it becomes like what you do every single day. But because it's become more of a trend, it's nice to talk about. It's, in my mind, it's going to make a guitar. If you have the same guitar and you just simply make the sound hole larger, you're going to lose some bottom end. You're going to lose some of that that woofiness, that oomph. And it's going to bring out more mids and trebles and probably bring into some more volume. But I will say that I don't recommend this to people, to an existing guitar. I think that if you're having a guitar built or you are building a guitar, In that context, yes, experiment with different size sound holes, because that sound hole needs to be adjusted. Like my grand session and my session model, they're two different size instruments. They have two different size sound holes because your sound holes is like, it's like a tuned port on a subwoofer. You know, those, they don't just slap. I mean, on cheap subwoofers, yeah, they slap a little port on it. But a properly designed speaker or subwoofer, there's engineers that have spent a good amount of time deciding on what the length of that port is and what the diameter of the port is, because it's tuned very specifically so that you can, you know, reduce and accent certain notes. And the sound hole on my guitar, I've landed on where I've landed because I've tried several different ones, and this one kind of gives me the best balance. It's not really something that I have a conversation with my clients when they're like, oh, I want more of this or I want less of that. I've never, I'm like, oh, well, then we'll put a different size sound hole on your guitar.
Yeah.
I take those changes, I make those changes with different tools like tone woods, bracing, you know, different things like that. But I think that if you've got a spare guitar and you want to try it. But in my mind, it's like, it's not something that I would do. I know that there's builders out there that you can order them that way from, and I do that. Yes.
You're describing this, and it reminds me of like friends that I had in high school and college that would do a tune on their car or modify it in some way, but then not really understanding the full circumstance around that modification and what it does to other parts of the car down the line.
And I guess that's exactly it. Like, you know, you work on a car that you bought. Well,
you think you can just put a turbocharger on something, and that's really not the case. You also need to modify down the exhaust.
Exactly, the drivetrain. But yeah, there's engineers who've spent a lot of time designing everything so that it all works together. Like if you buy a Martin D28, you know, there's a reason why it's been built the same way for so long, and there's a reason why it has that size sound hole on it.
Oh, you know? and God, I just thought of the thing too, where like if you want to sound like Tony Rice, there's always that. And I've had so many guitar teachers, and I think anyone that plays an instrument for any length of time will tell you, like, I think the general rule of thumb is 70% of your tone comes from your hands, right? Yep. So like, yeah, so if you're chasing that Tony Rice sound, and you think that if you think taking a file or like widening your sound hole, that seems like a fallacy.
Yeah, and I would say this though, like we're kind of hashing this out as we go here. If you're building and you're frustrated with the sound of your guitars, if you feel like it's a little bit like stuck in there, then try making a bigger sound hole. Take that same guitar and take I've heard a great suggestion was taking like a funnel and putting sticky sandpaper on it, and then you could just
I like that.
You need something like that to maintain the roundness of it,
right? And
try it out, because you need to start honing in on what your problem is, and the sound hole is a factor. But what I would recommend is that as a builder that you land on a sound hole size and stick with it. If you want to, maybe come up with 2 sound hole size options to offer to customers, but there's only so many things that you want to be modifying in a guitar before you start losing track of what's doing what. You know, I've said it before, every guitar is a science experiment. You want controls, and you want a hypothesis with a couple of changes. And but the conversation I keep seeing is, you know, whether you should enlarge the sound hole of your existing guitar, and in my opinion, I say don't do it unless it's a cheap guitar. And it's like you've got 40 of them. You know? And know that what it's going to do is you're going to lose some bottom end, and you're going to get more mids and highs, and somebody's going to tell me that I'm completely wrong, and that's fine.
Next question is from user JDL with the
Jiddle.
Yeah, exactly. Jiddle. Yeah, I think that's the French pronunciation. Really, yeah. So side bracing up. I had a bad experience with a crack on the side of my Larrivee. It got fixed by James Olson, which is very cool, but ever since, I've had to have side bracing on any guitar I buy. Thoughts about side braces?
James Olson works on Larravees? That's what I wanted to know.
Listen, you know, whatever.
It's cool. I love it. So he wanted to know what my thoughts are.
Or, well, he just wanted to know what from the group. Well, thoughts are on side braces in general. Like,
because his guitar cracked and didn't have side braces.
Yeah, it didn't have side braces. And now every guitar he's had since then, I've had to have side bracing on any guitar I buy.
Yeah, I find it interesting. Anybody who follows the channel, and if you don't, make sure you subscribe.
Ding.
I talk often about laminating sides. It's becoming more and more common amongst boutique builders. It does a lot of things, and one of those things.
But aren't they the same as plywood? Isn't that the same as plywood sides?
We need to make that video. No, they're not. Laminates are different than plies. Plies are laminates. But all laminates are not plies. Yeah, that's what. But is that I laminate my sides, and I do that for a lot of reasons. One of those reasons is strength. and it's a really, really strong thing. But before I laminated my sides, I always braced my sides, and that was just like every 3 inches is just like a ladder brace that runs along them. And I think that you should do that, absolutely. Those back then, those braces really were for insurance, is what those were for. The biggest joke in the guitar building world, in my opinion, are the little ribbons that Martin Guitar puts on their sides. They do a couple of things on the inside of their guitar that I don't understand. One of the things that they do is if you look inside your Martin, if you own on the sides, you'll see these like brown pieces of ribbon that are like glued on with like hide glue.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. They're just there to make you feel better.
I love the ant's nest that you're just kicking right now, too, because
the reason I know this is because I built a guitar for a customer years ago, and he wanted it to the T. I want this to look, other than the name on the headstock. In fact, I didn't even put a driftwood on the headstock. It just doesn't have a brand on there. It was an OM45 replica that I built. And he wanted everything the way Martin does it. So I had to do a lot of research on the Martin way of building, and it was weird. Like, so I literally went to Michael's and found ribbon that matched exactly. I had a disassembled Martin that I took, and it was just brown ribbon from like the present section, and it's glued on with like fish glue or hide glue onto the sides of the guitar. It doesn't do anything. It literally does nothing. Why not put an actual brace on it? It doesn't even have to be a very big brace. And I think nowadays they might be putting on like a thin, wafer thin section of wood. And at least that's, it's going, the grain on the sides is going this way, and the brace has wood grain that's holding it this way. And the main reason that's there is because you have these long lines of grain running along the sides of the guitar. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I have this Taylor that I got from when I graduated high school as my graduation gift. I was going to put it on a guitar hanger on the ground, and I just barely dropped it, maybe like 2 inches onto the ground, and the sides split almost around the whole thing. The only thing that was still held together basically was the neck block, and I could pull the back off. And this guy had the same thing happen to him on his guitar, like barely touched it, and the whole thing split. And that's because you have that long grain that runs around the whole thing. And just some tiny little braces around there can prevent that. It probably would have still cracked, but the crack would have only been this long.
Right.
And it would have stopped right there on that brace. And to me, that's why you should put braces on the side. You should always... Now, if you... Don't let it be a reason you don't buy a guitar.
Yeah.
If you love it and you play it and it sounds great...
that's thing number one.
Yeah, take care of it. Know that it's a little bit weaker because it doesn't have that. If you're building... Definitely do braces on the sides of your guitar. There's 100 ways to do that. You can, whatever size you want. Elevate Luthier, who I talked about in our last video, they make a really great clamp for gluing on those braces. I recommend laminating your sides. It's going to make them a lot stronger. And the braces are negligibly going to make the guitar sound a little bit better too, because it's going to make those sides a little bit stiffer and transfer some of that energy from the top to the back. In the theoretical world, that should make it sound better. But
and that's even one more fight to start in the comments section. So Martin fans, please send your hate mail to PO Box 3. People with soft-sided guitars, please send your hate mail to PO Box 7.
You can't deny it. I've got a guitar we'll talk about in a future video. But yeah, the Martin puts packing ribbon on the sides of their guitars, and then they put Lennon over their really badly done X brace, which we've shown you in a couple of videos now. So hey, Martin makes a great guitar. Somebody just brought me an HD28 through the shop yesterday, brand new from straight from friggin' Pennsylvania, with a sunburst on it, and I loved it. It was a great guitar. So anybody out there who thinks that like I just talk bad about these guitars, you're out of your mind. Like it was a great guitar. So I can't help that they do some things weird.
The ghost of Martin circles in his grave right now. All right, last question's from Clapton Wannabe 2. Hey, I don't think you're only the second person that's ever wanted to be Clapton. Okay, let's get that out of the way right now.
My running joke is always like, well, his name was Slow Hands. What does that make me? Extra slow hands.
Molasses hands. This is a subject line, top wood options for EIR back and sides. So, plodding along with first build, ended up buying a back and sides on the bay for a decent price. Sides are better than the ones I've already thickness and shape. I want to build a dreadnought. My current build is triple aught. Why are other prominent and or successful, I think he means what are other prominent and or successful pairings for East Indian rosewood? Cedar, redwood, I remember I'm a noob, so outlandishly priced woods need not apply, and it'd be wasted on my novice ability.
Yeah. EIRW, East Indian Rosewood. This is what he's referring to there. East Indian Rosewood is such a great wood for new builders. It's like just like a sirloin steak. It's a great foundation. This is Matt's department, but it's like you can do so many things with a sirloin.
Absolutely,
right? Like,
yeah.
Or just like it's just noodles.
Yeah.
Like you can do anything you want with it. East Indian Rosewood sounds great on its own. There's a reason why it's been like the sustainable replacement for Brazilian rosewood for so many decades. He bought it on eBay, which let us know. I've been kicking around the idea.
Yeah. This is leave us a comment if you want us to do this video, because Chris has been buying for years. He's been buying a lot of tone wood off of eBay, and so this would be sort of an advice guide on how to do it. Safely.
What pitfalls there are of buying tone wood on eBay, because there's some great deals, but there's some really, really, really bad pieces of wood on there too.
Yeah.
But back to the guy's question, I think that there almost are no bad pairings with East Indian Rosewood. Once again, it depends on sonically what you want to do. I love a Western Red Cedar top with Indian Rosewood. Taylor for years did their 714, their 700 series of guitars that were always paired really nicely. Western Red Cedar, Indian Rosewood. It's very warm. It can take a beating, but it also plays really good with fingerstyle. Just Adirondack spruce, Indian Rosewood. That's a great combination. It's great for bluegrass style stuff. Sitka spruce. There's almost no wrong answers here.
Yeah.
Using some sort of spruce or cedar with an Indian Rosewood is going to be really, really good. But his point does matter, because he's talking about how he's a new builder. I do always want to get back to the point for folks at home who are interested in getting into guitar building is don't go break the bank on your first guitar, because it's not going to be a great guitar probably. It might, but you're going to build another one. So learn the lessons on the first one and buy a better set for your second guitar. You can get, the nice thing is top woods don't cost nearly as much. I wouldn't spend more than $100 on your top wood for your first guitar.
Builds,
with that, we are going to be getting some much more affordable tone woods on our tone wood section of our website.
Yeah.
Little shameless plug there. They're in transit, the wood that we're going to be using. We got some really awesome flamed maple and curly cherry too, actually. That'll be great options. And some spruce, some really good spruces coming. But I hope that it was something a little fun, you know.
Absolutely. It beats listening to the sound of a CNC machine all day.
We're doing 30 electric guitars right now. A buddy of ours is working with us and working in the shop all day running the machine. But it's been really cool. We appreciate everybody. I think we should be hitting 40,000 subscribers today or tomorrow.
That's huge.
I haven't even looked. And we appreciate you guys so stinking much. Let us know if you want to see more of these type of videos. Let us know what you think about us doing a video on the pitfalls of shopping on eBay. And then also, we're going to get back in there and make some more sawdust, but we want to be utilizing this room for some more kind of talking head videos. So if you got ideas for talking head conversations, let us know what you got.
Yeah. Here for it. So,
thanks, guys.
Appreciate y'all.
See you in the next one.